Pucks with Haggs
is brought to you by Prizepicks.
Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe to that Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. This show is also brought to you by Prizepicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prizepicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, welcome into the Pucks with Haggs podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is the 217th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I have longtime friend and colleague Mick Colageo with me. Mick, thanks for joining us, and please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Rink Wrap is linked to X and Facebook, and my slow summer did have one notable exception, and that's the recent entry about the basketball Stanley Cup and Hockey News yearbook coming out. I do the Bruins article for them.
Yeah, so look forward to all that stuff. I am your host, Joe Haggerty, by the way. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership and get all my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns for the Boston Sports Journal and do a weekly Q&A with the subscribers there. So make sure to subscribe bostonsportsjournal.com. A lot of great stuff going on at that site. Great coverage of all the four major sports in Boston. So check that out as well. All right, let's jump right into it. A couple of news items this week as things slowly start to crank up. Mick, we're now entering the late August. Captains practices start to get going. People are leaving their vacation homes and getting to their NHL destinations, starting to skate with a little more purpose, getting ready for training camp, all of that. And even for the young players, I'm dropping my son off at Dexter every morning this week at 8:30 with him grumbling about how sore and tired he is because he's going to the Max Pro Red Machine, which is like a training camp thing they do during the summertime where the kids are there, the hockey players are there from 8:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. And it's off ice, on ice, like all kinds of stuff. So like they do hill runs, wall sits, all kinds of the off ice stuff, the plyometric stuff, and a couple of on ice really intense sessions. So he's there with a few of his buddies, but it's kind of, it reminds me of when I was in high school and I was doing double sessions before the season started and just like absolutely gassed when I got home and didn't want to do anything or just sit in front of the TV and not move. And Finn's kind of like that when he's getting home from these. So if you have a hockey player, Max Pro Red Machine, awesome way, sort of a training week and way to get ready for the hockey season, which is coming up. But like the NHL players, they're all doing the same stuff, really ramping it up to get ready. So things are starting to slowly trickle out. One thing we saw this week, Mick, was that Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Swayman get named to the orientation group for Team USA for the Olympics. Not a lot of surprise there. McAvoy has already been named to the team. He was one of the original 6 players when they did that sneak preview for the roster, so he's already on the team. I think Jeremy Swayman's got a really good chance to be on that team as well. So good representation from the Bruins on Team USA. And Mick, a lot of Massachusetts names on that list of players invited to that orientation camp. So that's a great tip of the hat for Massachusetts as well.
I mean, hockey is and it's inching its way back into it'll be here before we know it, and it's it's one of my good pals, Kevin Votor. Um, he's really the researcher of the Stanley Cup story with the basketball, but he said he sent a text to our group chat that said, "Welcome to the final month of the last month without hockey."
Yes.
And so we got one more to go, and then it's all gonna begin. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, you put it on, they fit, and you're off and you're running, and it feels like you're in the middle of the season a week later. It's funny how quickly it all happens. So
Yeah, it's kind of hockey, like having kids that play now. And it feels like as soon as you get past Labor Day, just like school starts, hockey starts. Like you really start once Labor Day, you get past Labor Day, the wheels start turning for all of that stuff, and it really all gets set into motion. And it's the same for the Bruins as well. That's when shortly after that is when you start seeing the captain's practice availability, the rookie training camp out in Buffalo, like all of that stuff starts going as well. So it's amazing how quickly, as soon as August ends, you're boom right into hockey stuff. So that's absolutely true. But yeah,
instead
good.
of 2000,
Go
there's
ahead.
still NHL moves being made, which is kind of funny too. These little things that are happening along the way here, and one of them you kind of alluded to by saying this is the 217th episode, and the first thing that came to my mind is it's the second career for number 17. So Milan Lucic is getting a chance with the St. Louis Blues via the PTO. So that's it's really kind of tells you how close we are that the moves like that are being made at this point. And teams are putting the finishing touches on their camps.
Yes, you were jumping all over the second news item that I was going to have there, Mick, which is
Oh, sorry.
Milan Lucic. No, it's all good. It's a great story as far as I'm concerned. Milan Lucic gets invited to training camp with the St. Louis Blues. Tip of the hat to Jim Montgomery for giving a guy like Milan a second chance. And Peter Chiarelli's involved in the Blues organization as well, and I'm sure that had something to do with it. In addition to like him being, I think, somebody that could still be a useful piece for an NHL team. He is getting a little older now, so he'll have to prove that he can, keep up with the pace in order to win a job. But it's still he's still somebody that could help a team. And from a personal standpoint, it's really great to see him get a chance to end things on his terms at the NHL level potentially, and that even more importantly, that it from what I've seen, and I've seen posts from his wife and from him, and it seems like things are really good for him at home now, and things have turned around there, and there was a lot of a lot of time focused on himself and his own self-care over the last couple of years, which I all that stuff is awesome. And it's great to see because he's a good person, and you and I have known him for a long time. It's really great to see everything is working out for him and everything is in a good place right now, both personally and professionally. And that's all you really ever hoped for Milan, was that it was going to get to that point again. And, hopefully it was going to be able to happen all in time enough for that window to have not closed on his NHL career. And we'll see what happens in St. Louis. But Mick, it's great to see him getting another shot here. I think it's something that people that have known him for a long time were definitely rooting for.
Luch has always been a very easy guy for me to root for.
Yep.
Um, so the troubling stories that came out that resulted in his expulsion from the Bruins and from the league, um, it's there's things that he said in the wake of that, and now he seems to be backing it up by celebrating certain benchmarks of sobriety, celebrating
Yep.
sobriety, and this is important for him, and all I can do is just hope and pray that for his uh, life and his wife and their kids that this regardless of what happens in this second attempt at the NHL that that the stresses of the process and the distractions of it don't lead to any potholes. So
Yeah, most definitely.
Godspeed to Luch.
We're all rooting for him. I'd love to see him win a job in St. Louis, and I think, like I said, I think playing for Jim Montgomery, that's a good place for him to be too. I think that's a guy that's going to be very empathetic to Luch's situation, and I think it's a good place for Milan to be. So we're all rooting for him and glad that he's going to get that shot. As far as the camp invite goes, this is the part of the year where you start to see those filter out for veterans that aren't going to get guaranteed contracts. And we saw a flurry of them over the past week or so. Lucic in St. Louis, Brendan Smith
Right.
I forget where his was. Victor Olofsson was another one that had pretty good numbers, and I was surprised he didn't get a contract anywhere, and he's got a camp invite somewhere. Um, any
Hey, Brendan
any
Smith, I think,
potential?
went to Columbus.
Okay, any potential camp invites that you can think of for players that haven't been signed yet that might make sense
Riz?
for the Bruins? Grizz,
Riz?
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I
That's.
just
I mean,
think
if
I'm
he
not
doesn't
saying that to
sign, yes,
potentially to be with them, but to be in their camp and to push Lowry, to push Callahan, to push Harris, and these
yep,
kids who want that spot. I think Callahan pretty much knows with a two-way deal that he's a Providence Bruin except in emergency. But
yeah.
Lowry and Harris, I think it'd be great for them to have Grizz. It'd be very much Don Sweeney's style to 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 throw a guy like Grizz there, even though they won't be grooming him to join the Bruins necessarily. They'll be giving a highly respected member of the family over the years a platform in which to uh, launch the next chapter of his own career. Because he's a good player still. In a third pairing, he can be a good player on a good team.
Yeah, and if he doesn't sign a contract, I agree. I think if it's a camp invite, I think it could make sense for the Bruins and for him potentially, because they're also going to take care of him and do the right thing for him, and give him a chance to show what he can do, pushing those players or getting a job somewhere else if it comes to that. But I think the Bruins will do right by him if it turned into a situation where he needed to go to training camp and try to win a job. The one thing I would think from his end though is you probably want to go to a team where there's at least what you feel like is an open spot to win get a contract. Where I'm not sure the Bruins, unless there's an injury, it's
They're not
tough to
in.
see how he's gonna get a contract here based on the guys that they have for that seventh spot, that extra defenseman spot, and the six guys they have signed to NHL deals.
No.
So I think it makes sense in some ways, but I think in other ways it might not. Because I would
Depending
think
what
if you're
other
going to go to camp,
opportunities are there. Yeah.
yeah, if you're going to go to camp, I would think you'd want to go to a place where you feel like you're going to win a job and you're going to be in that place and you're kind of getting to know your teammates in camp and sort of ingratiating yourself and you like all that stuff rather than just sort of showcasing yourself for somebody else. Um, but I continue to be amazed, Mick, and stunned really that Grizzly has to sing for his supper potentially this fall in a training camp invite situation. Coming off a career high in points, led the Penguins in power play assists, was playing over 20 minutes a night. Was an effective player for Pittsburgh. Was one of their better defensemen. Uh, to find a guy like that doesn't have a guaranteed deal right now is very surprising. Even if there's a little bit of a stigma with him about his size and some of the things that can be taken advantage of in the defensive zone with him. Like there's some of that for sure. But I would think that he does enough other stuff well that would at least earn him given how everybody's always on a search for good puck moving defensemen. It strikes me as really interesting that like he has not signed anywhere yet, and pretty telling to be honest with you of maybe how he's viewed or maybe how big defensemen are in vogue now, and guys don't want the undersized D as much, and it's sort of going back to their traditional way of thinking. I'm sure there's a few things at play here, but like, and him probably at the beginning wanting more money, like not wanting to settle
I think
for
that's it.
something less based on the season. I'm sure all of that stuff is in the mix, and it's amazing to me that he doesn't have a contract.
Half the league probably put it out to him. Sure, we'll do 1 year, 1 million. I mean, there's been an incredible. I think that probably for me, the biggest surprise or the learning curve for me personally and watching the NHL management strategy this summer has been that with the rising cap that's projected to be over 100 million per team in a couple of years, that there were so many deals that guys who have made better money and still have life and have gas in their tank, years to play, are settling for these prove it deals, these little
Yeah.
1 year, 1 million, or 1 year, 775, and it's two way. Or it's just amazing how many guys came in like that. It's as if the NHL GMs went there and held a meeting with all the unsigned players and said, listen, we're all thinking about going completely with prospects and amateurs and bringing in entry level players and letting you all go play in Europe. We really don't want to go back and
Yeah.
retread anymore. And you're going to have to come in at these prices or else they're not going to be interested. I'm thinking Grizz has had a good career. He's made some good money. And I think he probably was like, I have to, my speculation would be that he didn't want to settle for that without letting the summer play out. And so maybe he prefers to do the PTO and then see what happens rather than just take one of those deals because they had to be out there for him. I wouldn't be surprised if there were at least 12 teams who had made offers to him that were credible in the context of what everybody else is getting who's in these kind of positions.
Right. But it is interesting that that's sort of going on when everybody knows the cap is going way up. Um,
Yeah. It's
Maybe it
weird.
speaks to how all that money is getting sucked up by like the very top tier of players out there, and what's often been theorized with that CBA, the newest CBA, when it came to be, was that it was going to wipe out the NHL middle class, and there was going to be no sort of middle class players anymore. It was going to be a bunch of guys making top money, like maybe three or four a team, and then everybody else was on these really small deals. And
Interchangeable
that's kind of how
parts.
your
Yeah.
salary, yeah, that's how your salary cap was basically going to be um, look for the most part. You'd have a couple of guys maybe that would be in the middle, making a decent chunk of change, but a lot of those middle class players were going to turn into either entry level guys, minimum NHL deals, or guys on entry level contracts that are really cheap, young guys, all that stuff. So it's interesting to see all that stuff play out sort of in reality right now. But I really hope Grizz, finds a spot sooner rather than later. Based on the year he's had, he certainly deserves it.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a
And the
break
Stanley
in the
Cup
action
champion
right
would be
now,
the
Mick.
caveat. Sorry?
Uh, the Stanley Cup, what, Florida?
Well, they're the caveat to all of this. They had a UFA purge that awaits every team that wins, and instead they all came in. Well, two of the three came in with clear cut hometown discounts in order to keep the band together.
Yeah,
So they're the team that's winning the Stanley Cup is the team that's going against the trend. And I'm wondering if this will influence the thinking of some of the contenders as far as if they're going to try to cultivate, well, hey, let's do what they do when they have contracts come up and say, you can win here. Do you really want to take that big a chunk of our cap? Look what they did. Look at the success they're having. Look what it's doing for all these guys' careers. If
yeah,
management teams going to start trying to sell particular players on that when their contracts come up, because Florida is a notable exception right now to the trend of the rest of the league toward a star system with interchangeable parts, as you noted,
yeah,
had been originally anticipated as a byproduct of the cap system. And for a lot of years, we didn't have it. Some teams were incredibly balanced. And the Bruins, I thought, were one of them. And then, they had some Bergeron making below market, Marchand making below market for the sweet spot of his career. He made below market, and but there aren't too many teams you can say that about. And and so now seems like the whole, like you said, if they don't want to spend the money on the depth, then it means that it must be going to be big game hunting is coming, and there's going to be bigger contracts coming to star players, and with next off season a year from now.
Yeah, no, all of that is interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how it bears out. I will say, I think it's case by case, and I think Florida's in a very unique situation where those guys, it's almost a cult like thing down there now because they've won and because those guys want to stick together. That is hard to recreate if you haven't won. It's hard to get guys to take less to stick around and all stay together like that and sort of buy into that whole system unless you're winning Stanley Cups, and only one team can do that. So it's hard to envision people being able to copycat that exactly like they have. But I mean, the Bruins for a long time, when Patrice Bergeron was the leader here, were able to get guys to take less to stick around too, even though they weren't like a perennial cup winner. So it
Yeah,
can
the
happen.
buy-in.
So
They had the buy-in and the
it'll
belief.
be yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that happens more, or if that's something that can be recreated. But let's take a break for now to talk about Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It is fun. It is super simple. On Prizepicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, basketball, esports, football, so much more. You can now win up to 2,000 times your money on Prizepicks, and they also offer a Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the Prizepicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. Let's also let people know that are listening to this episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. We ask you that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Celtics All Access on CLNS, the NBA History Channel, Patriots Press Pass, and Bruins Ringside YouTube channels as well. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the very exact instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. All right, Meg, let's get back into it. We got a couple of emails this week. Nothing groundbreaking, more amusing than anything else. This one from XX Jimmy Bones XX on Twitter says the Bruins need to continue with the dump and casual skate to get it done. It's sort of like the dump and chase, but way more lazier. It's worked well for them last year. I think. Do you want to see any more dump and casual skate this year, Mick? Or are we all done with that? Hopefully.
I think that then the Bruins will henceforth play to win. What happened when they shut down Lindholm? Sent Poitras to Providence, Minton to Providence, and brought up Lysell. Handed Mason Lowry the puck and said, "Run with it." And the one good thing that came out of all of that is that there was tremendous chemistry on the line with Lindholm, Geeky, and Pasta. They just went
Yep.
crazy, and it was nice to see that happen on the account for all players involved in that for
Yep.
various reasons. It was great to see all of them enjoy that. Zadorov on the back end had his own thing going on where he surged and finished the season in a strong way. And they knew they were going to do a lot of things with this team. So it almost didn't matter what else happened. But they were hoping that Poitras and Minton would get a opportunity to play meaningful hockey and chase playoff run there with Providence. It didn't go as far as they hoped, but they did. They almost got goalied in the first round. They got through it, so they did get some of that experience. So,
Yep.
but henceforth, Mason Lowry is going to be in protected pairings. He's going to be expected to play defense before offense. They are going to try to be winning hockey games here, and they know they need to be good in the back end.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to come down to, and we've said this a lot, like the health of the defense, the rebound of Jeremy Swayman, performance wise. Like it's pretty clear where the improvements are going to come and what's going to happen. I did think it was interesting that Charlie Jacobs was on the Jimmy Fund telethon, the WEI Nesson radio telethon over the last couple of days. Really generous $25,000 donation from the Bruins Foundation or from the Boston Bruins directly. I forget which one it was, but he was on to talk about that and answered a few questions as he does every single year. And I did see that Tuca and Sean Thornton were on there too recently. I think the next day, which was great too. And they made their own personal donations. But he was on, and he basically said that Bruins fans would be, quote, pleasantly surprised by this Bruins team. And it was clear that that was sort of the feeling that they have inside that management group. We're estimating this Bruins team, underrating this Bruins team to a degree, because the onslaught of like vitriol of people saying they suck, of people saying they're going to be terrible, of it's going to be another year just like last year, and like that, like what I just read, the dump and casual skate instead of the dump and chase that people saw last year.
It is funny.
Like, honestly, what they saw, how they played, like all of that stuff is legit, and they deserved all of that. But I kind of agree with Jake that I think people are going to be surprised at the level of competitiveness and the level this Bruins team is going to be able to play at, based on players that they have, based on the health of everybody, based on a better performance from Swayman, based on still having David Pastrnak. Like they've got pieces in place, and they brought in some competitive players that I think this is going to be a competitive, entertaining team that's going to win some games and is going to be in the playoff hunt and is not going to be at the bottom of the division. And I do think fans are going to be pleasantly surprised by this Bruins team once things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And my feeling is that um
What is going?
is that is that really what happens with second line offense is going to be a big part of this. I always expect Zaka to be a good player in the first half of the season. I think a big question is how is Middlestat going to play, and if he isn't really going, is Potter going to be good enough that they can consider him for a top six center role? Um, and put him between veteran players. Maybe some magic happens because the kid's got great eyes and great hands. And Arvidsson will obviously be on the right side of that top six. And so Middlestat's a huge X factor. McAvoy's health is a huge X factor. Those are two things. If Middlestat goes poorly, you might have an answer. If McAvoy's doesn't stay healthy, if his shoulders can't take it, then the Bruins have a much bigger problem. And so, to me, the health, the recovery of Lindholm and McAvoy is something I don't think much about to talk about, but it's silently in the back of my head like I need to see them play a chunk of the season before I believe they're really beyond all this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to say, like, it could go bad for the Bruins, but I think they're going to have all the bad breaks that they had last year happen again and basically recreate themselves. If Jeremy Swayman plays like he did last year, and Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm miss half the season with assortment of injuries, of course they're going to have a rough season. Of course it's going to be hard for them. Like, yes, that it's going to be a tough season if all those bad things kind of assail them all at once, like they did last year, and frankly cause them to trade all those veteran players at the trade deadline and sort of, steer the ship into the iceberg. Like, yeah, it could go wrong for them if all that stuff happens. And I think there is a bit of a reality that Lindholm and McAvoy are entering a stage in their careers where they may miss some games here or there. Like, they're getting into their late 20s. They play a very physical position where they've taken a lot of punishment. Like, they may start to, get dinged up here or there. Um, that's probably just reality. But like, I don't think either one has shown a propensity to miss like months at a time or anything like that. And I don't see that as something last year that's gonna happen again, just given what they've done over their careers. Like, obviously you want to see them both healthy and no limits and going running wild in training camp, playing their frontline workhorse defenseman type game. But like, unless last season repeats itself in terms of the stuff that went wrong for them, the key stuff that went wrong for them, like, I don't see a repeat of last year just based on the quality of the players on the roster, based on the bottom line structure of the roster, based on the defensemen they have, based on the goalie they have, based on having a great goal scorer. Like, you have a couple elements in place where this team is not going to sink to the bottom. Like, it's just not going to happen unless what happened last year, which was a one-time thing, happens
Perfect
again.
storm. Yeah, that was a
Right.
perfect storm last year. Yeah, and
The perfect
I
crap
don't
storm.
see that. I don't. Yeah, it was, and I don't expect that again. And it took that in order for them to pull the plug on the season. That's what it took. I don't see that happening again. I guess when I think about McAvoy and the shoulders, I think about prior injuries, how he gets
Yeah.
targeted with missile forechecks, and
Yep.
how and to me, the acquisition of Zadorov was something that I hailed very publicly as a this is going to save McAvoy. Well, now if he's going to play with Yoki Haru and McAvoy is going to match up with Lindholm, then McAvoy becomes the physical defenseman on that pairing. And can he keep playing that way and stay healthy is my question, because he plays at such a speed that his hits are very impactful to the opponents and to himself. He's a high speed collision waiting to happen on purpose when the other team has the puck and when he has it from the other team's purpose. And I still don't know if this is the beginning of a long, complicated erosion of his career through the shoulder injuries. Um, Hopefully he can steer clear of it, get well, get traction, have space in between last year and any next event, and then hit a groove. And that's what you hope for with a kid like him who's already been banged up quite a bit in his career in the upper body. Um, it's just a part of it's the function of his playing style, part of it's bad luck, part of it is teams knowing his value and trying to take him out of a playoff series. Even Toronto played that way against Boston in the playoffs. They dumped to McAvoy's side and they sent in missiles, torpedoes. That's what they sent in.
Yep.
And so, I'm like, hey, Bruins got to get tough. They got to make teams pay. They got to inflict punishment. They can't be just saying, okay, we're going to take the 2 minutes and go on the power play, or we're going to be better than you because we're going to be shaking hands and moving on at the end of the series. Teams that play that way never are standing at the end. And not that the Bruins are on any kind of trajectory that we should be talking about, but if McAvoy is a player that you want to be healthy and be still playing his great hockey when your team gets there, when all this emerging prospect pool develops and becomes impactful to the team's fortunes, that he's still going to
Yep.
have game, then they got to do a better job with him right now.
They do. They do. But like, that's part of the job description too, though, is taking those hits. And teams forecheck you when you play defenseman and you're a puck retriever and a puck carrier and a puck mover. You're going to take some of those hits, and it's going to happen. And that's the name of the game, especially in the playoffs. Like, that's a good teams. That's what they do, is they grind down the defenseman and wear them down with physicality and make them start to hear footsteps as the series is going on, or just take them out entirely. Like, just put enough of a physical beating on them that they get hurt and they're out. And like you said, like the shoulder stuff with McAvoy is definitely a little bit of a concern, especially given the physical way that he plays the game, and how he approaches it and how he plays it at his best, and really how you need him to play in order for him to be as good as he can be and as effective as he can be. He needs to play that way. That's kind of like part of the package of him as a great defenseman. So, um, you just hope that that is something that is a once in a while thing rather than something that chronically gets worse for him. But
Right,
I'm
exactly.
willing to give him
That's it.
I would give him the benefit of the doubt at this point that last year was just some catastrophic stuff that happened, some unforeseen stuff. The stuff at Four Nations was crazy. Um, that there's not going to be a repeat of that, and that he's going to be able to stay healthy and really effective this year, and really, you know, all the tools are in place for them to have really good years and be exactly what the Bruins need to make them respectable again. And it will underscore to everybody how important McAvoy and Lindholm are to the entire production of what the Bruins do. I think fans right now they're saying the Bruins are going to be terrible and be lottery bound again and be exactly like they were last year. It's almost like a disservice to how good McAvoy and Lindholm are and what they bring to the table. It's almost like fans are forgetting like that was the biggest reason why things went sideways and went as bad as they did, and that's why they will probably return to a much better place with them being there, is how important their presence is and the kind of role that they play and how good they are and how kind of unratedly good they are. Like I think people will see that and people are going to be surprised. And this is to the point of what Charlie Jacobs was saying about fans being pleasantly surprised. I think the Bruins inside that management group understand how important those players were to everything that they do, and get that was very much interlinked to that team collapsing last year, and that will allow them to really like sort of bounce back in a good way if they stay healthy and if Swayman is able to stabilize his performance and get back to where he was 2 years ago with a full and incident-free training camp. So, like that's what I think you look at, and people that know hockey, I think, understand and look at it rationally, understand that the Bruins could actually be a pretty decent team next year. I'm not saying Stanley Cup contending. I don't think they're anything close to that. I don't think they're anywhere close, to really even making noise in the playoffs. I think they are close to potentially vying for a wild card and pushing back into the playoff picture, and certainly getting away from the bottom of the league, because the only way you're in the bottom of the NHL is if your goaltending sucks or if your defense is terrible or some combination of both. And like you can get by with not having enough offense as long as those other two things are okay, and still even be close to a playoff team. And I think that's what the Bruins are going to be. And I think that's what kind of Jacobs was alluding to in that interview with EI and Nesson. All right, another question here, and this is kind of linked to what we were just talking about. CMAC 781310 says, Haggs, are you telling me to take the under in all Bruins games this season? And this is a reference, obviously, to like us downplaying how much offense they're going to have and what they're going to do offensively. You know what, Mick? I think if you took the under in all Bruins games this year, all 82 games, you would probably end up on the positive side of the ledger winning some money because I don't think they're going to score on a regular basis until they add a few more elements. I don't think they're going to score big numbers. I think it's going to be low scoring defense, conservative kind of hockey we're going to see for a while.
Doesn't have to be. Um, they have to prioritize keeping the puck out of their net, and they have to prioritize not a strong checking game to avoid taking penalties. Um, and they have to be willing to hustle their way to inflicting uh, punishment on teams by being aggressive, being in their face, being hard to play against. All cliches until you have a few names on your team that can make that happen. Uh, so, will it be, scoring goals will require something that'll look like overachievement, but it could be career changing for certain players if they buy in and the Bruins can whisper to them and get inside their heads. Talking about Casey Middlestat once again, Thinking about how Matt Poitras had, some good stretches in Providence last season after
Yep.
NHL time and played some meaningful hockey at the end of the year. I'm sure the kid is really determined to try to make this team and show that he's ready to get back to where he was a couple of years ago before the injuries got him when he was playing a decent rookie season and maybe be bigger and stronger and better to weather those things and be a permanent member of the team. I don't think he wants to go away. There's a lot of competition for a couple of spots, and most of it's decided, but they want to be a difficult team. I think they can be a difficult team, but it really is going to be important that Marco Sturm, is able to get everybody on the same page as to what that's going to look like and how they're going to play the game, and so that they can invent it and grow their brand while they go through this process that's probably going to take 3 years or so of integrating emerging prospects that are some of which are the product of March 7. Some are not the product of March 7. They already were in the system. And
Yep.
and I expect that those forward lines are going to look a hell of a lot different 3 or 4 years than they do in this October.
Yeah. No, most definitely. It'll be sort of a slower, gradual transition. I think the one positive thing that the Bruins can do with all of these sort of forwards that they're bringing online, though, and bringing along, is point to Morgan Geekie and say, like, this is possible for anybody. Like, this is we if it's a middle stat type or if it's a younger guy, we bring you in here, you get a certain role at the start of your Bruins career, and then if you work your way into it and if you play your way into it, you can play your way into a different kind of role. And the next thing you know, you're playing with David Pastrnak and you're scoring 30 goals and getting a huge contract. And that's got to be, I think, a motivating scenario for a lot of different players in a lot of different situations on this team, is to see what that guy was able to do with what was a fairly small opportunity when he first got here. And he just kept building on it until he got to a point where he did get a shot as a top line player at the start of last season. Didn't really do much with it, but then a month or two into the season, really grabbed hold of it and just got better and better, and really has been able to take more opportunities the more as he's been with the Bruins, and showed more and more, and was able to show more of his game and improve and display more of his game as time went on, and just take and get more stuff handed to him. And now he's on the top power play, and now he's playing top line, and now he's got the big money, and now people are expecting him to score goals and provide offense, all the stuff that all these players want to have. That's got to be the ultimate motivational figure to look at if you're one of these players that wants what he has and doesn't have it yet.
And Seattle walked away from him as a group two
Yeah.
RFA, and they let him go. So he was not compelling to them. He's a good player for the Bruins. He was a useful player for the Bruins, but when they moved him to the off wing, um, and I'm not an off wing advocate in general, like old school Russian hockey. There are certain players who are made to play stick inside. He is like one of those. They unlocked his inner Wayne Cashman, Mike Knuble, um, Michael Ryder, and found that there's a niche for him. Playing with pasta obviously inflated those numbers, but
Yep.
his ability to create offense is many more results for him coming off the left side than the right. So, with the right shot. So, in his case, that was the right move. I hope Marco Sturm has had enough discussion with the Bruins not to tinker with that part of it. That whatever line he's on, I hope that's where he's going to be, because that's where things open up to him there. So, but yeah, you're right. I think to some extent, Pavel Zacha was a meandering player and became
Yep.
a much better player with the Bruins. And
Yep.
the experiment to make a second line center out of him has not gone as well as they thought, because 2 years in a row, he began the season in a position where he earns that spot. Now Monty didn't start him there last year, but he put him there because he was the only forward playing well at the time. And
Yep.
and he wanted him to affect more of the game. Then he loses his job. By the end of the season, he wasn't there anymore. Same thing the prior season. Not sure what happens with Pavel Zacha late in seasons, but something happens with the energy level or the production or something, and he doesn't wind up in that spot. So maybe he needs to be on the left wing after all. And so with Marchand gone, great. They have two established left wingers there now with him and Geeky. So that really helps them. There's just so much X factor with this team right now that and with a new coach who's going to be a lot more open-minded on, he's not going to come back and just say, okay, I got this and I'm going to build that. I think he's going to mess around. And I hope that that doesn't get in the way of the parts that work that the Bruins desperately need to have a good start and to be formidable. I don't think they can let this linger and have the season be an experiment while they're trying to figure out something that might work. But then again, you know, I don't want to sell Marco Sturm short. They hired him for a reason. They believe in him. I'm sure they've talked all this stuff out with him about their players and what they think they can do and where they do it best. And so
Yep.
I think it's somewhere between his philosophy of hockey, what he thinks of the Bruins roster. Like he told Spit and Chicklets, yeah, I'll play 1-3-1 if I don't think we can score. And we're not playing well right now. But if things come together for us and we're a better team than what we're advertised to be, then we'll probably play a more aggressive system. So,
Yeah.
you can watch and see how they're lined up to know what Sturm thinks of how they're playing.
That tells me we're probably going to see 1-3-1 to start the year, and then if they start playing better, then they'll switch it up. But I do think there's going to be some modest expectations to start the year, and some understanding that it's going to be hard for them to generate offense in the early going beyond the top line, and hopefully the top power play if those pieces come together and Steve Spott really is effective as a designer of the power play and a coach of that power play. We'll see how all of that goes, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's a very conservative look to start the year and based on defense and counterattack and jumping on other teams' mistakes and all that stuff until they figure out exactly what they have, and if they feel like they start clicking on all the cylinders and maybe they even have a young guy or two that really emerges, and when all that stuff, if all that stuff starts to happen, yeah, I think you'll see them play differently, but I'd be really surprised if they don't start conservatively until they know exactly what they have and what's going on, and at least have that sort of foundation in defense and goaltending and playing the right way and playing good 200-foot hockey. And once they have that, maybe they can start adding some things. But I think it's going to be like basic fundamental, just good defense, situational offense, like relying on special teams, all that stuff until they've got all of that in place and they're doing it well. And then they can maybe add some tweaks or some flourishes to it. But it'll be interesting. I'm as curious as anybody to see what a Marco Sturm coach team is going to look like and how this team is going to jump out of the gate. Training camp is going to be really interesting and fun. I'm looking forward to that. And now we've started the clock. I mean, we're like around a month away or less, so we're going to start seeing some hockey here pretty soon. Thank God. But in the meantime, Mick, thank you very much for joining us this episode. Want to thank everybody for watching and let them know that they've been watching the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure to hit subscribe on the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. The show is also brought to you by Prizepicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prizepicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prizepicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game. Mick Colageo, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
Everybody else out there, thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.